And number 8. Now, this one's obvious. Sorry. The other one got cut, so this is going to be part 3, unfortunately. This one's obvious. You're going to have to buy the fact that that car that the prosecution is going to show images of, video of, is his car, Brian's car. You're going to have to buy that. Doing the loop-de-loops. Doing the loop-de-loops around the house 17 times, right? Whatever. Doesn't know how to park, whatever. I don't know. But you're going to have to buy that that's his car. In all that shit that the state is going to try to show with the car, you're going to have to believe that's his car with him in it. With, excluding certain cameras. And, there's also missing footage. At least in one of the cameras, there's missing footage that's cut. So you're going to have to buy that this car that doesn't know how to apparently drive, or who's driving it, doesn't know what they're doing. They're prosecuting. Well, he was staking out the house, waiting for the perfect moment to park and go in the house. All right, you're going to have to buy that. That was his car. Even though we don't know we can't see who's in the car, right? Could be anybody in the car. You're going to have to buy that. You're going to have to buy the fact that there's a Hyundai Elantra that fit that year, and that was his car. You're going to have to, that's obvious. You're going to have to buy that, too. Yep. There's a lot of buying you're going to have to do in this, isn't there? Yeah. A lot of buying. What else do we got? Number 9. Now this kind of correlates with an earlier theme I did. An earlier point about this things you have to believe, right? As a juror, touched upon this earlier. Goes to there's no other pieces of evidence such as blood, DNA, hair, fibers, all that. Not in the car, not in his apartment, not in his parents' house. Hey, yeah. I'm not gonna make that a separate one, but you're gonna have to buy all that too. That there was just that little tiny speck of trace DNA on the underside of the button snap. That's a whole other can of worms. Because what was the chain of custody with that? What was the chain of custody? How comes he couldn't match anybody at first, and then the FBI grabs it? Oh, and lo and behold, we got our lone perpetrator, Mr. Brian. Once the FBI got a hold of that shit. Oh yeah, we go into 23andMe illegally and other genealogy websites illegally. Find his father or whatever. That's how they get him. They get his father and then they get him. The FBI. Don't drop a dime on me, baby. Don't drop a dime on me, right? Fuck you. All right. Anyway, that's not a separate one, but that goes to what other evidence, what other hard evidence do you have? Not circumstantial. What's the other hard evidence you got? Direct evidence, right? Right. All right, number 9. All right, speaking of DNA, you're going to have to believe that little speck that they did some hoodoo and voodoo with, DNA, hoodoo and voodoo with the DNA, baby. You're going to have to believe that little trace, well, you're going to have to believe that was deliberately, that he touched that item, handled it, and then used a phantom weapon that we don't have the knife that matches the sheath. But you're going to have to believe that little speck was put, that somehow, yeah, he touched it, went into the house with it, with the weapon, did what he did, left it there on accident, right? Yeah, okay. Alrighty. You're going to have to buy that. And this is the biggest piece that they got, is that little speck. Little speck. Now, of course, the defense is going to argue, hey, it could have gotten there. It could have gotten there some other way. I don't know. They're gonna try to argue, hey, that speck. Who knows? I don't know how they're gonna argue that. That one is gonna be their biggest obstacle. The defense. It is. It's gonna be their biggest obstacle. Is how do you explain to a reasonable, rational-minded jury how that little tiny speck got there? That's going to be your obstacle. Big obstacle. But not impossible. I mean, that's not impossible. It's hard. It's going to be hard. But if you organize your defense against that, I think you'll be able to overcome that piece of evidence. I do. I really think the defense will be able to do that. It has to be well organized and logical of how that potential speck of his got there. It's going to be hard, but not impossible. Not impossible at all. All right. That's number 9, guys. You're going to have to believe that tiny speck is his, ignoring all the other pieces of DNA that was found that doesn't match him, though. See, you're going to have to ignore that as a juror. Again, you're going to have to declutter yourself, declutter your mind, and just tune that all out and just focus on that little speck. All right. Anyway, number 10, baby. Number 10, baby. And I'm going to throw this one in here too, guys. It may not be necessary, but I feel it's important, okay? As a reasonable-minded juror, remember, you're watching this case. As a reasonable-minded juror, you're going to have to somehow get around the fact that the roommates didn't call 911 for at least 8.5 hours. You're going to have to believe that these two little lily whites were scared out of their mind, and that's why they didn't call 911 for 8.5 hours. That's what you're going to have to buy, right? Because as a reasonable-minded juror, you're going to be sitting there thinking, wait a minute, well, why didn't they call 911? Especially when Dylan the Prime saw Xana the first time laying on the floor, didn't move. Why didn't she call 911 then, right? As a reasonable-minded person, you're going to ask yourself that question. What were you doing, right? Life is but a fucking dream for the Prime. Well, I'll tell you what, it's going to be a nightmare soon enough when that trial rolls around. And I hope it's the worst nightmare she ever fucking has in her life. The Lucid Prime. Lucid Prime. My ass. So anyway, you're going to have to get around this. Logically in your brain, you're going to have to say to yourself, well, okay, I guess they were just scared. But guess what? The defense is going to show all those text messages, all that activity that they were doing on their phones. They're going to show that to the jury, and they're going to say to the jury, well, if they're so scared, how comes they're looking for jobs on Indeed instead of calling 911? You're going to have to swallow that as a juror and say, well, they were just two scared little college girls, drinking fucking Borgs, right? You're going to have to buy that as a juror, that they were just scared, paralyzed with fear, right? Right. You're going to have to buy that. All right, number 11. You're going to have, as a juror, you're going to have to buy the fact that, and if this is true, which are still, it's a little murky here, the purchases of the balaclava and a knife from Amazon, supposedly. Hey, remember, this is all my theory, speculation, and opinion, all right? Fair use, educational purposes only, baby. And I hope we are getting educated, I hope. Anyway, as a juror, you're going to have to buy the fact that the purchase of the mask and the knife much earlier in the year January of that year. That was taken with him when he was, entering into PhD school. He took these items with him, not to go hiking, not to go hiking into parks, which is one of his hobbies. But no, he bought these items specifically because he was planning on doing something nefarious at some point in time later. You're going to have to believe that too, that these items purchased off of Amazon, if that's true, he specifically did that because he had some sort of plan in his head that he was going to use them later on, right? In his fantasy of wanting to unalive somebody. Okay? You're going to have to buy that. Can you buy that? Do you see the pattern here, guys, right? You see the pattern. What is the defense going to do? Well, they're going to ask the jury to be logical and reasonable. Hey, these items were purchased 10 months before the crime happened in weather conditions that fit the mask. And the knife also fits the fact that you're going to take this for self-defense protection purposes if you're a hiker and you're going into remote areas. That's logical, guys. That's your logic. But you're going to have to stretch your mind, and say, well, that's not logical. He did that. He purchased these items specifically to unalive somebody 10 months later. Can you believe that, guys? As a reasonable-minded juror, can you believe that? You're going to have to in order to convict. Yes. Number 12. I'm going to leave it at 12, guys. Leave it at 12. This is part 3. Unfortunately, my second part got cut. But this is 3. So number 12, I'm going to leave it at 12 for now. All right, so what's the last thing we want to leave off with that you're going to have to believe as a juror to convict Brian? Okay? All right, let's go. Well, I touched upon this in the very first point, but I wanted to make it a little bit more clear. So I'm going to put it at 12 here. Now, this is not necessary to convict, okay? But in a case like this, I am going to put it on the list because I made this the first point. Now, remember, he has no violent criminal past, so you can't point to that. All right? You don't need a motive to convict. But I feel in this case, being a reasonable juror, that with the magnitude of what this crime is, you would want to show some type of motive. You don't need it to convict, okay? I give you that. But you're not trying Ted Bundy here, guys. Again, that goes back to my first point. You do want to show some type of reason, right? Some motive that he had. And the state doesn't got one. They don't got one. No, it's not necessary to convict. Okay, I know that. But keep it in context of what we see in this case. You're going to have to, as a reasonable juror, you're going to have to believe he did all this without a motive. With no violent past. That suddenly one day, again, he decides to wake up, and I screwed up another video, not summer evening, okay? He decides to wake up one cold November morning and think to himself, oh, well, today's the day I'm going to put my plan in action, okay? Now, the prosecution, what they're going to try to do is they're going to try to say, well, no. He was casing the joint months before this. Casing the joint. He wasn't going to supermarkets. He wasn't going to gas stations. He wasn't going to shops. No, he was casing the house. Then we bring in all the cell tower stuff. And if Cy Ray is allowed to get on that stand and do his thing, it's going to be good night, Irene. I'm telling you right now, because the state is not going to be able to be able to push him off that stand. No way in hell. So if Cy Ray is allowed to get up there and do his thing, all that casing the joint, all that stuff, and even, and all this stuff that happens, 2:21 a.m. where he shuts his phone off, all that nonsense where he goes right instead of goes left. Cy Ray gets up there, he's going to destroy that piece. He's going to destroy all that. So, but you're going to have to buy that. You're going to have to buy the fact that this lone perp is a psychopath with no criminal history, no violent criminal history, that he's just a psychopath or sociopath, doesn't matter. I'm going to go with psychopath here on that one. But psychopath. Okay. Meanwhile, being a psychopath, he's a TA at his PhD program. Okay. Grading pain in the ass kids' papers who all bitch and moan because he grades too hard, right? Those little crybabies. Oh my God. And at some point, what happened, I think, he's like, you know what? I'm sick in here and crying, bitch. So you know what? Here. Hey, you get an A and you get an A. I'm tired of hearing you bitching. Yeah. Anyway, I'm going to leave it at 12. No, a motive is not necessary to convict. But in a case of this magnitude, I'm telling you, you're going to want to have one, some semblance of one. And the state doesn't have it. All right, I'm leaving it there at 12. That's part 3, baby, part 3. Hey, listen, I love you all, of course. We're going to do more later. But I hope you like that one, okay? I just want you to, now, when you're listening to this or watching this, I want you to pretend that you're a juror on the jury watching the trial. And as the evidence comes up and is presented to you, I want you to sift through it reasonably, logically, rationally. Okay? All right, I love you. I hope your Sunday is going well, guys, or Monday if you're in a different time zone. I hope your weekend or whatever, I hope you're having a really lovely time. All right, bye-bye. I love you all. Bye-bye.